Have you ever watched The Wolf of Wall Street? You remember the scene where he asked the salesperson to sell me this pen? And do you remember the guy's answer? In this video, we're going over the best answer to sell me this pen for medical practices, but more importantly, why that whole concept is so important for private practice doctors and growing their practice. This channel is all about creating more sales for the solo practitioner and the solopreneur through presentation performance for more profits in your business. And this one skill completely transformed the way that I sell and the growth of my business. Sell me this pen! It's probably one of the most overused salesperson interview questions ever. I was doing a little research for this video and looking on YouTube, and there were hundreds of other videos about sell me your pen, and you'll probably see those over in your feed anyway. But I'll tell you what, they didn't address one key principle about why sell me this pen has gotten so much fame over the years. It's a very important concept that you have got to get right, or else your sales just won't be there. Now, this is the first thing that I take my clients through when I first start coaching them on sales, because it is so very important. And I ask two very simple questions. What do you sell? And of course, usually go, well, Tom, of course you know what we sell. That's why we hired you to sell more. Like, okay, play along with me here, but what do you sell? And then the follow-up question is, what do you really sell? And generally I get some blank looks like that and go, well, it's the same as what we sell. It's what we really sell. And ultimately, it's not what you're actually selling. And that's why there's so many problems with private practices in terms of growing the business, because you aren't addressing the actual problem that your prospects have. You've probably heard the quote about the drill, right? And my twin, Seth Godin, hey Seth, has a very interesting take on this whole concept of the drill. Now, the quote originally came from Theodore Levitt, and it's, people don't want to buy a 1/4-inch drill, they want a 1/4-inch hole. Now, Seth goes on to kind of go off on this and says that it's really not even about the 1/4-inch hole that they want, but it's the feeling of accomplishment of getting their project done, whether that's putting a shelf up on the wall or putting a picture or a clock or something like that. But ultimately, it's that feeling that they get from buying the drill that creates a hole that allows them to do what they want to do. But the concept here is, it's the feeling. It's the same with the pen concept. You know, sell me this pen. Well, you could give all the benefits of the pen, but you're not really getting to the problem that people have. It's like, what do you like to write? You start to ask all these very important drilling questions, excuse the pun, and you get to the real reason why people are wanting to buy the pen, wanting to buy your services, wanting to drill the hole. Of course, you'll never know what your clients really want unless you actually ask them. And that means asking questions. And that's, if you watch any of my videos, you know that I'm all about asking the right questions to get the prospect to give you the right answer that actually ultimately tells them that they need your product and service and should hire you. Now, I was working with a group of salespeople recently, and one of the salesperson actually told me this, and I was really surprised. And she said, you know, I really don't like to pry into their personal business and ask all those kind of questions. I'm like, but that's your job, is to ask those questions, because unless you know those questions, you aren't going to be able to fit the solution to their problem. And I tell you what, once she started asking more probing questions about why they wanted the product and the service, her sales naturally increased. Now, if she would have just continued selling the actual thing itself, she would not be as successful as she is now. And that's the concept that I want to get across about sell your pen. It's not about the pen itself. It's about the feeling that that prospect wants from using the pen to do what they want to do with it. And the only way that you're going to know that is if you ask those probing questions. And when you ask those probing questions, it's going to start to drill into that prospect's mind that they're actually going to accomplish something by getting your service. If you're struggling with sales and just feel like your prospects don't get you or don't understand what you do, well, ultimately that means that you're not asking the right questions to get them to really understand what their problem is. And then you need to go and address the solution to their problems with your service. And that really means going back to the basics and understanding exactly what it is that you're selling. So I recommend that you do this very simple process. Ask yourself 2 questions, and these are the same questions that I just said earlier, but number 1 is what are you selling? And number 2 is what are you really selling? And think back to the last 10 to 15 interviews that you've had with prospects. What did they tell you that they ultimately wanted from your service? What was the ultimate desire that they had? And when you start to understand what those desires are, now you can start to create that presentation to hit those desires so that ultimately that prospect wants it and they want it now. For wellness practitioners, they sell their education, they sell the actual nutrition program, they sell all of this other stuff, which are actually the features of what they do, and they rarely focus in on what the prospect is actually going to gain from it. Ultimately, you're selling a better life for your clients and your patients. You're selling a better quality of life. You're selling freedom. You're selling choice of healthcare. You're selling a bunch of things other than what it is that you actually do. And when you focus on those aspects, rather than just what you do, but rather what the patient actually wants and what their end result is, then you're going to see a lot more results in terms of your sales, and you're going to be able to help a lot more people. And ultimately, you're going to be selling more than just the pen. Now, I've put together a really cool video of an actual sales conversation that I had. I'm going to put that right here. I want you to watch that because I break it down in terms of all the questions that I ask and go through exactly what was happening on the call. So go ahead and check that out. And until next time, you have a great day.